In this session, I'm going to tell you briefly about how to design your levels and how to put enemies and traps so that it has give you meaning and challenge to your game. And you should be careful that mm, just you don't put different things beside each other. I've introduced you a sample that how your game should have what kind of lands and what are different types of the enemy that you can put as level design. It's a very important thing for your game. For example, you have different levels and you have to be careful about what to put in the first level, on the second level, and how to make it gradually harder. Not that you put everything that you have on the first level. Or how long should your game be? For example, some people make one level, and believe me, um, for example, we have one level here, and some people publish that as a game, and they okay, this is a game. No, this is not a game. This one level is just an example that how your code and every other thing just works. It doesn't. It's not really something. So what we should do about the length of your game, it's good that at least it be 2 hours of gameplay. So it would have lots of content. And 2 hours is really nothing. It's just the um, an ordinary game that should be, especially for the platform games. Some games might have 20 or 100 and even more than that hours of gameplay. So, but for that, for making these 2 hours of gameplay, you have to spend month of creating content, and it's better that for each game you spend at most 6 months, not more than that. Some people spend, for example, 5 years on developing a game and then publish that. That would be very discouraging. You cannot wait for that long. You can, for example, make something a game, and then, for example, you spend 6 months on that, and it's somehow a complete game. And then, for example, you can publish updates and different things and add to that gradually. That is a different thing, and you can do that. And how many level it should be? I think that about 20 levels for that the length of game, that would be good. For example, each level be about 5 minutes to 10 minutes. At first, your level lengths are not equal. At first, maybe it should be 3 minutes or 2 minutes, and maybe your last level might be, for example, more than 10 minutes. You kind of bring that balance, and your 20 levels should not be repetitive. You can split that into some seasons. For example, 4 seasons that each of them has 5 levels. So, for example, at the first season, it's in a jungle summer environment. Your second season is in, for example, in the swamp environment, and you just change the tile to, for example, for the summary, it is green. The enemy are jungle themed, and for the second one, it is swamp. We can add water and some enemies like that are suitable for that environment. So, so the player wouldn't see the same thing over and over for the 20 level. And for each season, at least make 4 new enemies. So for the entire game, we don't see this and this. For first season, you can, for example, these are the thing that you have, this mage and this one. But it's better, for example, if you have a winter themed season, put that there because this fire demon with this ice demon, they do not match. So you can do that. And it's important that you, especially if your game is kind of an action platformer that's based on fighting with enemies, it's important that you make them interesting. For example, for your first season, what it was like that. Level, I mean, 1 to 5. Why it's like that? Okay, you get the idea. I don't know. So, and for this, you can have some basic enemies. Do not make it hard. People should have a learning curve. I'm sorry. And at first, you can add some stupid enemies like that. They do not really do something. For example, they get just close to you and just they um, hit you with very slow pace, or they just shoot something towards you and they are not hard to defeat. And you can add some enemies that only jump, or ranged enemies like they shoot the fireball, or just they have or they shoot arrows. You can, it's the code is the same, but they change the animation of that. Instead of firing this orb, to just shoot fire, so they are kind of ranger. And for your environment, if you go here in the prefab and the traps, okay, you made this, but don't add all of them to the first level or first season. The first season have something very easy. For example, add this saw and this spike. Okay, and for your season two, for example, you can add more enemies. The enemies that can fly or teleport, or they have shield. For example, this is kind of a flying enemy, or some enemies are tanked and have a very high health, but they do some less damage than the ranger one. And with the environment, you can add some more platforms that move, and some, for example, this is the, I think it was the platform that moved, or make it moving, if you had in the code that you give 2 points and this is moving. And for your season three, the enemies should have more complex AI. For example, you have the enemies that they like to work with each other. For example, some of them are protecting from the others, like their tank, and weaker enemies, they go on the behind of that. Or one enemy can is a shaman, for example, and heals the enemies. And do you remember that we had a code for taking damage? Instead of taking damage, we have the same code. Okay, in the take damage, you had the maximum health, or the current health, minus the amount of damage that the player gave. But for the healing, you have the same function, but instead of minus that, for example, the damage is a plus healing amount. And you make a health system. The code is the same. You know the code, you just have to be creative. And you can do that, or some enemies. Do you remember that when I uh, drink this potion, this is speed potion, my speed increased? So you can make an enemy that it shoots a orb to you and decrease your speed for example, 5 seconds, and the enemies attack to you. You can make something like that. Or you can even distinguish enemy to fire ones, so you have different type of orb, and that's for for the fire one you shoot ice, it will decrease more health from the enemy. Or you have some icy mage, you should shoot fire orb, that would decrease more damage because they are in contrast. So your game would be more thoughtful. And you can make your traps more engaging. So you can add this and this, or this, add lots of them, or this. Especially on the places that are very sensitive and you have to jump on this, but suddenly you have this axe. So the player should think when to jump, so the axe wouldn't shoot him away. And for your season 4, you can have mini bosses, those things that um, require you that you have more skills. You can make even the skill system that gradually adds, for example, to your attack power. This is not hard. And even the enemy that you have, for example, when I kill him, for example, if you have this amount of health or 20 health, it just does the same behavior. But you can make an AI, okay, if this is the health is more than 80%, it has this attack. If it is less than 20% of health, it shows, for example, different attack type, or his speed would increase. It's kind of in fear that, okay, he's dying and he has to be more alert, something like that. Or he can even summon other beings. And for the environment, you can have um, different types of platforms. For example, you can put them all beside each other. You have axe, and then you have this, or you have this and add another platform. Or at this, make it harder. And the very important thing is that, okay, I have to make all of them. It's time consuming. Yes, for the first time, that's why your first game, put all of your efforts on your first game. Not because, okay, you say, okay, I'm going to sell that and become rich one night. No, you have those codes, and, for example, make a very good inventory system. And for your next game, you don't need to make another inventory system. Do you think that for example, the famous companies make for example, the script from beginning again and again? No, they've just stored the previous inventory system, and they just for the next game they use that. But imagine that the previous inventory collected sword, but in the next game it collects gun, for example, or it has some, for example, this inventory doesn't have toolbar, but you can add toolbar for your next game inventory. The code is the same. This is modular, and you can add different features to your new inventory, but the actual inventory is based on the previous game. So if an inventory system took you 1 month to write, for next game it only takes 1 day to adjust that and make it even better. Or if you have the character that does different things. For example, it attacks, he shoots fire. You can have the same code. Okay, you can have this code and give it to your next game player. Just adjust the speed, just adjust the health amount. Or if he shoots fire now, you can have a gun and shoot fire, shoot bullet actually. The code is the same, there's not different things. You can just slightly change them. So yes, for your first game, if it takes 6 months, your second game, it might take 1 month. And so you can make, for example, lots of games that one of them might take the market. But they're all good qualities. So yes, to code all of them, be something like that. And that was the most important things that I've told you. But it depends on you. I just give you one example. You can make other examples for yourself and just write down what you want to do. So before you are trying to make your game, just write a simple thing like that and say, okay, from one level to this, I want to do that. Um, and even describe briefly what your enemies are, what are their capabilities, and make them, and then design your level. And when you want to design the level, it's better that at first you try to make this part, for example, add your enemy, test that, and then go to another chunk and see what would happens. And for example, this enemy, this ice one, needs lots of ground to shoot those ice. So always keep in mind that's what environment your enemy also needs, so make them according to that. Or if there is an axe, um, if you put enemy that has a collider, the axe would shoot them away. But here you have the ice. The collider was in trigger, was is triggered, and there's no problem that you can put the axe here. It wouldn't push this one away. So you should be always careful about the relationship between the traps and enemies also. And yeah, this level that I've made is very very short, so you can add that more. And you saw that I could kind of bypass him. Just jumped on him and went away. So you can make some enemies that really make you to stop and fight the previous ones. For example, make a very giant tree that it is not is triggered, you cannot jump on him, and you have to fight the tree, and these are shooting you, so you have to return and kind of kill them. And with experience, you gain these things, so don't worry. And I think it was the most important things that I wanted to tell you. So, yes.